Alright, welcome to video number 2 in Learning Target 3.1. The third part of the Learning Target here is all about cell organelles. You see that there's two cells side by side. We got the animal cell and we got the plant cell. And we're going to talk a little bit more in depth about the similarities and differences between these two cells. But I want you to focus on right now, though, is what's inside of these cells. You can remember from our levels of organization in the previous video, inside of cells are these things called organelles. And organelles are the cell parts. Organelles are the things that help a cell run and do what it needs to do. So let's break each one down, and the ones that I go over here are the absolute minimum organelles that you need to know to be prepared for your verbal quiz and test. So here we go. The first organelle you need to know about is called the nucleus. The nucleus helps to control the cell. It stores genetic information in the form of DNA. Sometimes this DNA or genetic information is also called hereditary information. Next, we got the cytoplasm. The cytoplasm has a really important role. It's not really an organelle, but it's a substance that's like jelly inside of the cell. All this like squiggly red stuff. I'm trying to show you all these white, this whole fluid inside the cell is the cytoplasm. And that provides support for the cell and also allows things to move around inside. So all these other organelles that you see in here and all the things that they make and have to transport around the cell so the cell can function is allowed for by the cytoplasm. Cyto means cell, and plasm is like jelly, like fluid. So this is a cell fluid, cytoplasm. Ribosomes, yeah, you see the ribosomes, these little dots here? The ribosomes are really important, actually. The ribosomes is where protein synthesis takes place. Synthesis sounds like a really big word, but synthesis really just means to make something. Protein synthesis is to make protein, and that's what the ribosomes do. And believe it or not, the ribosomes actually work with the nucleus. So the nucleus sends a message to the ribosomes to tell them which protein needs to be made at any given time. We'll talk a little bit more later on in the year exactly how that happens, but for now you should know that the nucleus and the ribosome work together to make proteins. The nucleus sends the message, and inside of the ribosomes are where the proteins are made. Next up is the vacuole. There's a couple vacuoles in this animal cell here. Vacuoles are like the closet, the storage site, the place where you keep stuff, in particularly water and other energy and other materials that the cell may need to store for a little while. Doesn't need it right away. It says, hey, I'm going to go put that in the vacuole. Maybe it forgets about it, but eventually it needs those things inside there. So the vacuole is a storage site. Upcoming next is the mitochondrion. Now, mitochondrion means one, but sometimes you talk about two of them, and you call them mitochondria. So just know that they more or less mean the same thing. They're talking about an organelle that makes energy, the powerhouse of the cell. It makes an energy called ATP energy, and it makes this ATP energy by something called cellular respiration. We're going to talk more about cellular respiration later on in Unit 3, but for now, just know that's where cellular respiration takes place. That is inside of the mitochondrion, or the mitochondria, if you're talking about two together. Next, the cell membrane. The cell membrane goes all the way around the cell. It's like a barrier. It supports the cell. It protects the cell. And it lets things in and out. So that's the role of the cell membrane. Next, we got the chloroplast. And one thing I want to notice here is that we've shifted over to talking about the plant cell. And that's because chloroplasts cannot be found in an animal cell. You only find chloroplasts in a plant cell. All these black little ovals or circles that you see here represent chloroplasts. However, in real life, they're green. And if you ever wondered why a plant leaves, most plant leaves that is, are green, it's because of these little things called the chloroplasts. Chloroplasts are green, and as a result, so are most plants. Now, plant cells only have chloroplasts. And inside the chloroplast, there's some substance called chlorophyll that turns sunlight into energy by this process that you've probably heard of before called photosynthesis. There's that word synthesis again. Do you remember what it means? That's right. It means to make things or put things together. So photosynthesis put things together using photo or light or photons, right? So putting things together with light is photosynthesis. We're going to learn all about that later on in the unit. But for now, you just need to know that photosynthesis happens inside the chloroplast, which can only be found in a plant cell. What's next? Ah, yes, cell wall. These things are also unique to plant cells. You can only find the cell wall inside of a plant cell, and the role here is for it to support and protect the cell. Plant cells need the extra support because they don't have a skeleton or a vertebrae or other support structures like an exoskeleton like other animals may have. So in order for a plant to stand up tall, it needs a cell wall. Oh, bars, what do you know? Moving on. Let's now compare animal cells versus a plant cell. Right? We got the animal cell over here, the plant cell. Now you see them side by side. I want you to think about, well, what is some similarities and differences of these that I already know? Pause the video and see if you can tell what the differences are here between the animal cell and the plant cell. And when you think you've got a couple of the differences spotted, move on to the next slide. All right, well, some things that you should have noticed about the difference between the animal cell and the plant cell is, well, first, its overall shape and structure. Animal cells are round. Plant cells are kind of like a brick. They're rectangular. Next, plant cells have small vacuoles. They both have vacuoles, but in a animal cell, they're smaller. In a plant cell, they usually have one or a couple larger vacuoles. Remember, that's the storage site. What's another difference? These black circles or ovals, which are really green in real life, that's the chloroplast, only found in the plant cell. No chloroplast in the animal cell. And the last one here, sorry, that's blocked off here by this little thing. There it goes, magic. The cell wall, right? The thing that goes all the way around the outside of the cell is the cell wall. And look, animal cell does not have a cell wall for reasons that I mentioned on the previous slide or so. All right, so you actually need to know the difference between an animal cell and a plant cell, what they look like, and what are the differences in the organelles. So definitely need to know that. Very important. All right, so check in with yourself. There's a list of organelles. Sorry for the overflow here. These are a list of organelles, and I want you to think about what does each of these organelles look like. I want you to actually close your eyes. I'm serious here. Closing your eyes and visualizing what does a nucleus look like. You can visualize it in your mind to help you recall it at a later time when you actually need it. Serious. Close your eyes. What does a nucleus look like? If you can't do it, then you're not ready for the verbal quiz. All right? What else do you need to know? You need to know what is the function and role and job of each one of those. So the nucleus, the ribosome, the cytoplasm, the mitochondrion, the chloroplast, cell membrane, cell wall, in fact, we need to be able to rattle them off and know what each one looks like, so you can label in the diagram, and you need to know what each one does. It needs to be quick. I know that it's a lot, but I also know that you can do it. Maybe go back and watch this video again. Next, can you identify each of the label organelles? So take a moment, pause the video. There's only a couple here. See if you can label them, and you can figure out what they are and what they do. Okay, did you get this one right? The nucleus, where the DNA is stored and works with the ribosome to make proteins. Did you get this one? Right? This is the cell membrane, not cell wall. This is a plant cell, but the cell membrane is inside the cell wall. Cell membrane supports, protects, let things in and out. What about this one? These are all the same, these big things. Vacuoles. That's right, these are vacuoles. They would store things in there. They're larger in plants because plants tend to store and need to store more water. They also use this as a way to support themselves, help them stand up straight. What about these? You saw them earlier in a different shape and form. Yeah, those are the chloroplasts. That's where photosynthesis happens, where you turn sunlight energy into glucose energy. Very good. You can practice again if you want. Here's another different picture of the plant and the animal cell. You can use this if you want. Although, to be honest, there's more things in these pictures, than you actually need to know. Okay, so those are the cell organelles. Those are the differences between the plant and the animal cell. I know that this learning target is pretty heavy and pretty hectic, and there's a lot in here. But break it down, take your time. I know that you'll be able to be successful. And go on to the activity now, and then when you're done going through the activity, come and see me for the verbal quiz, and we'll make sure that you're successful on the test that's ultimately coming your way. All right, so welcome to Unit 3. Welcome to Learning 3.1, Learning Target 3.1. Welcome to cells, cell theory, and all that good stuff. All right, take you later. Check you later, I meant to say.